Afternoon, everyone. Calling to order the October 24th meeting of the Sonoma County Technical Advisory Committee. As always, we will start with a, not a roll call, an introduction.
Ashley Cotter, City of Sonoma.
Elizabeth Tyree, Sonoma County Regional Parks.
John Gutenberg, City of Petaluma.
Craig Scott, City of Cotati.
Chris Barney, SCTA, RCPA.
Adam Garcia, SCTA, RCPA.
Alejandro Perez, Town of Windsor, and with me today here is Brendan Barrett, engineer for the Town of Windsor.
Welcome, Brandon.
For the background as well. Native Dallas, Sonoma County SPI.
Stephen Hunter, Sonoma County SPI.
I'm Laughlin, Sonoma County SPI.
Torina Wilson, City of Santa Rosa.
Derek Montani, City of Cloverdale.
Dave Ripper, SCTA, RCPA.
Shauna Gaz, SCTA, RCPA.
Larry Zimmer, City of Healdsburg, and in the back.
Drew Nichols, SCTA, RCPA, and also want to note that we have a quorum in the room too.
Great. And online. Just unmute, shout out.
Hi, Steve Urbanik, Sonoma County. I want to work from the remote location. County folks didn't want to tip the room over, so I thought it was good that we just had, a couple folks there.
And we can mute you this way.
You can, yeah. Happy to be muted.
Tony Bertolero, City of Sebastopol.
Ross Fundun, SCTA, RCPA.
Margot Cañas, SCTA.
Great. I assume that's everyone. Thank you. Next item is public comment. I'm not sure that we have anyone from the public.
That is correct. No members of the public are on Zoom right now.
All right, on to item 3, approval of meeting minutes from September 26, 2024. Does anyone have any comments or corrections? And a second?
Second.
Perfect. Unless anyone objects, that passes unanimously. On to item number 4, the Comprehensive Transportation Plan. Sonoma Moves 2050, starting with 4.1, application for new transportation projects and programs. Chris?
Great. Thank you so much. So before I jump into the new project applications, I just want to shoot out a reminder that updates to existing projects are due next Thursday, October 31st. So I sent out worksheets to each jurisdiction. So if you have any questions, please let me know, even if you want to walk through some project ideas or how to build that out. So
I have a question on the old projects.
Yes.
If a project's been modified, say the initial project was doing a couple of segments or a couple things and you're eliminating half of it, are we just editing that project or do you prefer it deleted and a new one added?
I prefer we actually edit the existing project.
Okay. Good. That's what we're doing.
That's hopefully that's easiest for everyone. It's easy for us on our
Yep.
end too.
Nope, that works. Just wanted to make sure.
Cool. So yeah, please reach out if you have any questions about that or want to work through that process. So moving on to applications for new CTP projects. So I'd like you to consider submitting new project ideas for projects over $1 million in size for this time around for the CTP. So we've set up an online form to actually collect that information this time around. So it's a relatively simple application. It's about 1.5 pages. It's a Google form. So hopefully it'll be pretty easy to work with. But for new projects, we're looking for, the most important bits of information are project sponsor, primary contact and contact information for your jurisdiction, project description. So it can be pretty general or more detailed. More detail is always better if you have that. Location of the project, including a start and end point, if you have that, and coverage of the project, if it's a more area specific type project. If you have a project map or plans, that'd be helpful as well. If you could email that so we can use that to drop the project into our tools and model. Project type, we have a drop down there that's roughly consistent with our CTP project types. Approximate construction or rollout year for programs, and then an estimated cost. So it's pretty simple. So these are long-range, financially unconstrained projects. We're looking out to 2050. So anything that may be in your CIPs or general plans that's in that, big category that's not already in the list, please consider submitting that. Just a few things to think about as you're coming up with project ideas. If you want a project to be in the regional transportation plan, it should be in the comprehensive transportation plan first. So that's a first step. I'd ask you to consider submitting projects you'd like considered for the SCTA funding program cycle 2. So David will be talking about that later in this meeting. And then also our travel model and other tools that are used to prepare environmental documents for your general plans and other documents. Pull all the project information in from the CTP. So in order for that to be accurate and there not to be glaring holes in that work, it's pretty important that we have those big priority projects on the list in the travel model. So they're included there. So I can bring up the timeline for project updates just really quick. So it makes it easy to kind of track where everything's at. Let me just find it here. Just gonna bring up my screen. And hopefully it's enabled. Okay, so you can see here, we're looking at updating project information by October 31st. The call for new CTP projects will close in December. So again, if you're having any questions about that process, please let me know. I'm happy to set up a call or set up a meeting to talk about that more. So once that call closes in December, we'll take all of the updated project information and new projects and draft an updated CTP project list. So we hope to have that for you to take a look at the January or February TAC meeting for review before that goes out to our board or our Citizens Advisory Committee or other groups. We'll be doing a CTP performance assessment where we look at future long-range conditions and how that impacts travel flows, V&T, emissions, congestion, things like that next spring. I mentioned this before, and David will be talking about this more, as the SCTA funding program cycle 2 is going to be happening next summer. We'll be putting together a draft CTP next summer and fall, and then looking at wrapping up the final CTP by the end of next year. So that's the schedule for projects. There is one thing I did want to bring up that came up at the Countywide Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee Tuesday of this week. So the CBPAC really wanted to include maintenance for class 1 and class 4 bicycle facilities in the CTP as well somehow. So we discussed a few different options, either including a new project category on your project list, focused specifically on that maintenance, or just including it in your roadway pavement maintenance category. So each jurisdiction has a maintenance project that's kind of a lump sum in there. So you could always include it in that as well. So just have an estimate and include that maintenance cost in there. So, there are discussions about, small sweepers to keep those clean and, different ways of handling that. And, there's a desire to call that out in the CTP to make sure it's, on the radar. So just something else to consider as you're doing that.
So on that topic, we currently have 2 very generic projects, one for pavement maintenance, one for active transportation projects. You're saying we need to further break that down to the individual projects and individual costs for them?
No, I think what the easiest thing to do would be in either that pavement maintenance category or the bike, implementing your ATP category, including just a notation in the description saying that it also includes.
Okay.
And then putting the
Because that language may not be in the ATP, so you want it in the CTP so that we're saying that will also include this.
Yeah.
Okay.
So even just a
I'm with you.
sentence or like 3 or 4 words.
Much better than what I thought you were saying.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah, so we want to keep it easy. We want to keep it like streamlined and easy. But the CBPAC did want it highlighted to some extent. So, I think they, I think there was consensus that that was okay at the CV pack, so. I think that may be the easiest way to go. But with that, that's it for the CTP project list update for today. So yeah, again, please reach out if you have any questions.
Any questions for Chris? Seeing none. On 4.2, Chris?
It's actually Adam.
Adam, sorry.
Coming right up. All right, so part of the comprehensive transportation plan, a really important thing is to take a sense of how we're doing. How well is our transportation system performing based off our goals, various metrics. So what we're looking at is a backcast of either back to 2019 or the best data we have in terms of a snapshot for the most recent data, looking at the following different categories: system condition and safety, travel efficiency, transit use, inactive transportation, and equity in the environment. So there's a lot of different ways we can measure these, but these were kind of the low-hanging fruit, easy to do and replicate from year to year. So for this system condition and safety, we have got pavement condition index, bicyclists and pedestrian collision rates, and then transit vehicle revenue hours. So in terms of pavement condition index, we're looking, or the PCI, we're looking at a 3-year average, which shows a nice steady trend upward across the county. So that includes all jurisdictions. But if we want to zoom in to the individual jurisdictions, again, this is a 3-year average. We see most trending up, a few kind of staying flat, and then just a few maybe that already have great streets that might be a little bit on the decline. And so what's labeled there for on the chart is the 2023 value. This is some great news we're looking at in terms of per capita crashes for bicyclists and pedestrians. So that's the number of crashes per 10,000 people. So this may be in a large part just a relic of the COVID-19 pandemic, with fewer people driving, potentially moving around. But now that we've somewhat met our equilibrium in 2023, we can still see that's still quite a bit lower than the pre-pandemic level. So we'll see potential reason contributing to that, and that's thanks to all of you. But the hard story is where those concentrations are, largely city centers across Sonoma, as well as a few unincorporated pockets in Sonoma Valley and Guerneville. Then moving on to transit vehicle revenue hours. So this is how many hours the buses and trains are moving around. And so we're limiting this data to only routes that are serving Sonoma County. So that takes out a few of the Golden Gate Transit routes that don't come into the county. But nevertheless, we see the notable dip, as we're all aware of, after COVID-19, but there's been a slow progression upwards. So looking at travel efficiency, we've got average trip length and travel delay. So average trip length, we see what we might expect. Cloverdale being more isolated than the rest of the cities, has to take a further drive for their daily needs, whereas Cotati, Santa Rosa, Sebastopol, and the city of Sonoma are a little on the lower end, indicating that they might have better access to local resources that they would need on a daily basis. Looking at the daily, or I guess travel efficiency and delay, the map on the left shows the daily person hours of delay. So this is still a snapshot from 2019. We haven't updated the 2023 model yet. That's something we're going to be going through in the next few months. But I think the easiest way to interpret this is to say, we all travel on the US 101. If you've noticed your trip's taking about 9% shorter, then maybe you're right. That's about how close we can get on these metrics. But you see a lot of the delay. In addition, it's in downtown areas, but also in a lot of the unincorporated connections too. Now for transit use and active transportation, we have the means of transportation to work, bicycle facilities, transit ridership, and passengers per revenue hours. So no big surprise, drive alone still dominates as the main way that we get around just based off past transportation and land use decisions. Also, maybe no surprise is that work from home has increased and is actually higher than the carpooling rate. And just to give a quick primer, these are called ribbon charts. So the greatest value is at the top, the lowest value is down at the bottom. So you can see how they switch places from year to year. For this, zooming down at the bottom, we see the amount of walking, people taking the bus and bicycling all decreasing in terms of total numbers, but increases in train ridership, the smart train, as well as the miscellaneous category of taxi, motorcycle, etc. And this chart is probably more educational than graph. It shows the distinction we're making between separated lanes and then for bicyclists and shared lanes with vehicles. So separated lanes include class 1, class 4, class 2B, and class 2, whereas the shared lane with vehicles are class 3 and 3B. So looking back since 2019, amazingly, and kudos to everyone, we've more than doubled the number of separated lane miles in Sonoma County, going from 316 to 684, and also moderate increases for the shared lane with vehicles as well too, 2019 to 2023. Again, looking at the passengers, we see that significant drop since COVID, but the slow increase in ridership in the frequent recent years. And just wanted to give a special note to SMART also for increasing their pre-pandemic ridership. That's just an important achievement at the national level. So that's great work. And here we can see that when we combine passengers per revenue hours. So that is in some sense a measure of efficiency. How many people are you moving per hour? SMART has slowly ticked its way up and now is kind of leading the charge on terms of efficiency in moving people per hours. Then our last category, equity in the environment, we're looking at driving costs, VMT, and then greenhouse gas emissions. So for the AAA national driving costs, no matter you drive 10,000, 15,000, or 20,000 miles, the cost of driving has increased since 2019, even more so for those unfortunately smaller, lower mileage trips. And for vehicle miles traveled, we also see a notable dip in 2020, similarly likely a relic of the COVID pandemic, and closer to a normalization now in 2022. So definite decreases since 2018. We also see the VMT per capita and VMT per job largely track the overall trends in VMT. And then lastly, looking at the metric tons or greenhouse gas emissions, this should also be no surprise, transportation being the dominant source of our emissions, with building energy from natural gas for heating and cooking our food, and other uses coming in second. But there is a highlight, if you can squint your eyes very, very tight, at the top of each bar are the water emissions, which thanks to Sonoma Clean Power and Sonoma Water over the years have really reduced the transmission related emissions from moving our water from its source to our homes. So, and that I will open it up for questions or discussion.
Any questions?
Are you taking feedback on some additional metrics to consider, or is this pretty?
Yeah, we're always open. We've been listening to a few ones. Some that have come up have been trying to show passenger miles. So that would kind of show the increase, you know, for SMART, for Golden Gate Transit, but then might show a decrease a little bit or a smaller number that is for kind of the more local trips. So we've heard a few, really good suggestions, but we're definitely open to more ideas.
The ones that came to mind for me, when it comes to safety, I definitely think it would be nice to capture severe and fatal collisions since we are working towards Vision Zero, not just looking at the vulnerable road users, which you had pulled out. And then I've always struggled with, the journey to work data because that's such a limited data set. It doesn't capture multimodal trips, right? It's not capturing all those people who are walking and biking to transit, for example, or any, how kids are getting to school, how people are getting around to run errands, things like that. So this is not something that's probably realistic in the short term, but I think long term, it'd be great to have maybe some sort of countywide bike ped count program where we have permanent counters set up at key locations in each city. And we can track the growth at those count locations. It's just standardized over time. Or example for us in Petaluma, because we've been talking about this, is like we want to get a permanent counter at every crossing of US 101. And then that would be a great way to capture or to monitor progress over time. Odds are at some point people will need to cross 101 in their trips around Petaluma. So just an idea thrown out there.
Okay.
And I know Safe Routes to School collects survey data each year that looks at how kids are getting to school. So another possible source.
Yeah, that's great. I think maybe potentially down the road, once we have our active transportation model and we can get better kind of model data, that might be helpful at that point. But you're right, getting on the ground data with counters is essential. And I'll be bringing something up later in the meeting too, just about some opportunities that the folks at TAC might not have heard about our counter program, but I'll save it till then.
Cool, thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone online?
Yeah. In terms of, probably our largest cost here in Sonoma, in the county and most of our infrastructure, what's the dollar spent per pavement improvement index? Maybe something to look at. You're looking at where we're going with just the raw pavement condition index, but what are we spending to get that improvement or decline? Because we haven't invented flying buses or taxis or flying cars or flying bicycles yet, so we all need that pavement to go back and forth on.
Yeah, there are some really key related progress metrics for our Vision Zero dashboard expansion that we're kind of currently looking through. But if you look at the Vision Zero progress metrics, I think there are some related, maybe not specifically to pavement, but to kind of, the cost per active transportation project. I'd have to look at a closer. Pavement actually might be in there, but there's some metrics that are getting exactly at kind of your point. So that's another tract that we'll be following up with in a few months that Margot is helping lead from SCTA.
Yeah, I think probably really the critical question to answer here are our investments actually showing improvement in the metrics you're trying to track?
Yeah, no, that sounds good. And those progress metrics from Vision Zero hopefully will have an annual update process. So we don't have to wait 5 years or 4 years to see how well we're doing.
Any other questions?
Yeah,
Please.
yeah. Is there a linkage here that we could put into the charts between this and the greenhouse gas reduction plan? Like are there levels that could translate here into a line, a bar? Like, hey, this is our goal at 20 years or 10 years that we'd like to get under. So we could kind of gauge. Because, I mean, we're generally agreeing that numbers coming down is a good thing.
Right.
But coming down to what level?
Yeah. That is, I think, on the RCPA side of things, we have we're working on a climate, Sonoma County climate dashboard. Have you seen that before? might sound familiar. Well, it kind of looks at greenhouse gas emissions by jurisdiction, by sector, can break them down a little bit more. We have a kind of second iteration or version 2 dashboard that we're currently working on in-house that has some of these related kind of progress metrics we're talking about. And I think further down the road, we also have this tract of looking at what Anna Oliva from RCPA is working on, is kind of tracking all of the different policies that jurisdictions have passed, and that also includes the thresholds. So where are those kind of targets that we can interpret from the language of your policy documentation and then reflect that in a dashboard. So I think we're on track of trying to kind of do what you're saying, but yeah, we're probably a half a year away or something from releasing that, so.
Yeah, and I could also add, one thing we have on the schedule is doing that long-range performance assessment sometime next year. So that's where we really look out to 2050 and look at the projects in the plan and look what it'll take, right, to hit our GHG goals and, improve safety and things like that. So we've done that in the past and, had some rough quantitative assessment of, what it could take to get to where we want to go in the future. So that's definitely coming in. And so that's one of the reasons why it's important to have an accurate look at what's probably going to happen and what the local project and program priorities are in the plan. So they can be part of that mix too, looking out. And GHG is one of the big pieces of that. For sure.
No other questions? Thank you for that, Adam. On to 4.3 CTP Engagement and Outreach.
Thanks. Yeah, this will just be a really pretty brief update on what we're doing as far as outreach and engagement for the CTP right now. We included a flyer that has a link to our online survey, which is in both Spanish and English. So if you'd like to help us promote that, that'd be great in your newsletters or social media. So we're collecting information on transportation priorities through that survey. Also, this past Tuesday, we held a virtual town hall meeting, so a webinar. We had just over 30 people at the webinar, and we presented on what the CTP is, our vision and goals for the plan. Adam provided the progress report on kind of what's happening in the near term. Then we talked a little bit about the future, what our future forecasts and projections for the county are, and then how people can keep track of this and be involved. So that was a successful event. So one other thing we'd like to do is have at least one engagement event in each of your jurisdictions. So if you have some sort of fair or event going on that we could table at or attend to present at, please let us know. We'd like to actually go where things are already happening and not have to set up a meeting that we may get 4 or 5 people at. So yeah, just let me or Ross know if anything comes up in the next 6 to 8 months, and we'd love to attend some of those events. And that's it for the CTP engagement.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Chris? All right, item 5, the SCTA BMT Mitigation Banking and Exchange Program, same corner.
Yep. So last item, then you'll be able to hear from someone else. So the BMT Mitigation Banking and Exchange Program has been underway for 2 or 3 months now. We held our first TAC meeting in September. So there's been a lot of interest in the TAC. I think we had 20 to 25 people on the TAC at that first meeting, and we've had a number of additional folks want to attend. So we're in the 25 to 30 person range there. So at that first meeting, we talked about the outreach plan, or which stakeholders we should be talking to about the program. I attached a key issues document that's available now that walks through BMT and CEQA, right? Like what the requirements for SB 743 are, how BMT can be reduced, how to quantify BMT and reductions, urban versus rural issues, right? Like that's a big deal here in Sonoma County. A lot of the guidance we have is specifically for how to do this in urban areas. So VMT impacts are happening in the unincorporated areas too, and the requirements are a little problematic because we don't have a lot of guidance from the state on how to handle that. We also, the key issues document also discusses equity, legal issues. So we have counsel from county council that's attending these TAC meetings as well. So we want to make sure we're tracking what we need to do on the legal side of things as we're going into this. And then we're talking about how the program would be administered as well. So who the program administrator would be and who would implement it, right? If SCTA were to administer this program, we're usually not a lead agency. So one of your jurisdictions or someone else would need to implement, and maybe SCTA would administer some sort of program. We talked a little bit about the geographic coverage, if that would be a region-wide SCTA program. And then, different program setups like a bank, an exchange, or a fee type program. So we'll be digging into that more going forward. We also started brainstorming about potential VMT reducing projects. So there's a lot going on and a lot to follow up at the next meeting, which is scheduled for November 13th. So the main topics of discussion on that agenda are to dig into those VMT reducing projects more and talk about how to filter that list down. It's pretty big right now. We have a kind of big list of brainstormed ideas of what types of projects we could use to reduce VMT. And then we'll be talking about a pilot program concept or, how to, once we come up with a list of projects, an idea of how this would work, to stress test it, right? Like take a few example projects, run it through the program and see where the issues are. So that's definitely something we want to be doing sometime next year. So we're going to talk a little bit about that at this TAC meeting. So, yeah, that's it on VMT right now. So more to come soon. And that agenda is out now. I think a lot of you are actually on that meeting invitation. If you aren't and you'd like to be, let me know and we can get you on that. So that's where we're at right now.
Okay. Questions? Shout it out online or in the room. All right, no additional questions. Thanks. We'll move on to item 6. Measures M and Go Sonoma. 6.1, the invoicing obligation status.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As I do every month, I've included the invoicing and obligation status report for Measure M, but because we are moving into Go Sonoma, there is a separate page. So now, instead of one, there are 2 pages, and the second page shows the Go Sonoma projects that we expect to fund this fiscal year and whether or not they've been appropriated. We've had our first appropriation for the city of Cotati. We're excited. So that's these reports are included for your information. If you have any questions, please let me know. But this is for you to sort of keep track of where the obligations are and whether or not you've invoiced for them.
Thank you. Sorry, taking a note. Anyone have questions? All right, 6.2, the strategic implementation plan and proposed policy amendment for Go Sonoma.
So we brought this to you last month. This was just to confirm that we made the adjustment that was discussed by the TAC. So I'm including it in your packet this month because we were supposed to take it to the Citizens Advisory Committee last month, and then it got continued because they didn't have a quorum. So just wanted to make sure that you guys could see that moving forward, this was the language that we had discussed. So there's a may, the may include but not be limited to language has been incorporated into the proposed policy amendment. So the proposed policy amendment will go to the CAC this month, and then it will go to the board, the SCTA board in November. Happy to answer any questions.
So in the document that's attached, there's a lot of red. That's not just this change, obviously.
No, that was already there. That was what is that was the whole.
Oh, it's the
adjustment of the
blue
policy.
in
That's right.
section
The
A.
only
Got it.
changes in blue.
Okay.
And if you are red, green, colorblind, I do apologize. Be happy to point it out as in section.
I am,
A.
but I see it.
Okay.
Any other questions for Sean on that? Nope. Onward to item 7, regional information update, 7.1, inactive federal obligation informational item.
That's just, again, as we do every month, there is the list of federal inactive obligations. City of Petaluma got themselves off the list. City of Santa Rosa got itself on the list, so take the actions necessary to make sure that you keep these projects active if you can. And provide any updates that might be necessary. It looks like Sebastopol is also on the list, but they've submitted an invoice. There was some, I left you a message earlier, Tarina, but there was some confusion at Caltrans District Local Assistance over an invoice that was submitted. They thought it was for Hearn. It wasn't. It was for the overcrossing, the pedestrian and bicycle.
We submitted an invoice today, so I'm curious to see what happens. But it got in, so.
Okay, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Onward to the funding program cycle 2.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. So good to see everyone today. So here to talk about the SCTA funding program cycle 2. Back in 2021, we did the first round and we did call for projects December 2021. Had a lot of interest from all of the cities in the county and the transit operators, and we ended up programming over 65 million in funding, not including a bunch of projects that were funded through other funding sources, including the Transit and Interstate Rail Capital Program. We're having the next cycle coming up next summer, and we want to give you an early preview. There's about 110 million that we anticipate being available. This includes about 20 million in federal OBAG 4 funds, about 16 million in state transportation improvement program funds, another 2 million in Senate Bill 1 local partnership program formulaic funds, which are also state funds. And the many of the funds are mostly about a little bit over 50 million in Go Sonoma competitive funds, and then about 22 million in grade and tribal mitigation funds that the county passes through to SCTA. So these funds will be mostly available from fiscal year 27-28 through fiscal year 2030-31. There are some of the funds that are available earlier than that, as you can see in the table provided in the staff report. But we want to give everyone an early heads up since, as Chris mentioned, we want to make sure that whatever projects you submit to us are included in the countywide transportation plan. We want to give you plenty of time to vet out what projects you want to include in your submittals to us and be able to take it to your city councils or the board of supervisors to get their input early on. And also we want to make sure that everyone has a chance to look at the scoring criteria that we developed last cycle. We anticipate using very similar scoring criteria in this cycle, but we're open to suggestions or new criteria if you want to suggest adding something to that. The other thing that we wanted to make clear is last time around, we had a limit of 5 applications per jurisdiction. The county and Santa Rosa got a little creative and did 5A, 5B, et cetera. So instead, we're going to make it's a hard 5 projects for everyone, except for Santa Rosa and the county. We're proposing to increase that to 10 projects given their size. So we think that's a good compromise and makes it a little easier to track the projects and less confusing for everyone involved. Another thing we talked about before was last cycle, SCTA and RCPA staff all scored the projects internally. And there was some interest from the TAC in being part of the process. So if people are interested, we might be open to having volunteers serve on a review committee. Granted, it is a lot of projects, so it would be asking for a lot of your time. But if people are interested, we'd be willing to have TAC members serve on part of the scoring committee if you're interested. Just to scroll down to the schedule. Like last round, this is kind of almost a 2-year time frame where we're going to have the kind of a staggered series of programming. The first program that will get funded is the State Transportation Improvement Program, given that that is due in summer 2025. That's when the call for us will happen. And then applications we do to SCTA in August of 2025. That gives us time to come up with recommendations for the STIP funding in September, get those funds programmed early, and then deal with the rest of the funding program in 2026. So we would anticipate having the rest of the funding program recommendations out in July of 2026 for committee review and then board adoption in September 2026. And then over the winter 2026, 2027, MPC would approve her OBAG 4 recommendations, and they would come back for a final true up early 2027. So it's a lengthy schedule, but just want to give everyone plenty of heads up that this is coming, and we're happy to answer any questions that you may have.
No questions?
Got a question. You have to have some questions. So cycle one, you've got that list. Is it because of project delays or whatnot, would any of those projects be recommended to move to cycle two, or is it better to hold your place in line, so to speak, and don't alter it and come up with another list of 5 projects for cycle two?
I would suggest for any projects that you had that weren't funded, but they're still a priority for the city, to resubmit them. We won't be carrying anything over from the previous cycle, given that costs have changed, schedules have changed. So if you want to resubmit something, I'd say update that one and resubmit it.
So to restate that, what I'm hearing is it's a clean slate. Apply whatever you want to apply for. There's no credit given because you applied the first round.
Correct.
Other questions? Do we have volunteers for wanting to review the 8,000 applications?
Not ATP.
It'll be 10A, 10B.
I think it was at least 30 to 50 applications last cycle, so it's a lot of work.
And the OBAG, it's still not determined what the TOC requirement's going to be for OBAG 4?
So the final guidance is out. So we know that MTC has said they're willing to be flexible as well. So if you're making progress towards meeting those criteria, they're willing to say you're eligible for OBAG 4. So that's all been verbal up until this point. But one thing that's happening right now is they have a planning grant program. It's open right now. All PAC members and your planners know about this. MTC has $22 million available at the regional level to help with zoning changes, parking policy changes and everything needed to actually meet those compliance requirements. So they're making an effort to try and help people get there. And so I think if you're trying to take advantage of that program, making some meaningful effort, they'll probably check that box. If you're just like totally throwing your hands up in the air and not caring about it, I think that's where they may be a little. So,
Okay.
yeah, that's what I've been hearing, but yeah, they're trying to make resources available to help people get there. So they realize it's a big lift. So they heard that loud and clear as they were doing outreach. So ABAG staff met with every jurisdiction in the Bay Area about potential issues with it and recognized that, in a lot of cases, changing zoning means reopening the EIR process and the whole public process. So there's work that needs to be done. So they're trying to make some resources available to help. So.
Good. That's kind of what I was expecting and hoping.
Yeah.
So the door's not closed and probably open. All right. Any other comments, questions? Sure there'll be more as we move forward. Nobody online? All right. Onward, item 8, the upcoming SCTA RCPA meeting of November 18th.
Yeah, so just mark that note that November 18th is the third Monday that we'll be meeting for this November due to Veterans Day. So I don't have a draft agenda out, but tentatively the board will be presented on consent with October, for the right month, with some updates to this Climate Action Advisory Committee charter, Go Sonoma policy amendment for scope changes, the county's Go Sonoma cooperative agreement, State Route 121 A Street East cooperative agreement, TDM plan contract, RFP update, RCPA's How Information Worlds Shape Our Response to Climate Change. Looks like that will be a report on the regular calendar. The fiscal year 23 Safe Streets for All Vision Zero Action Plan Supplemental Planning Contract Award, ATP draft report, an update on the mascots and CTP progress report. And I think that's what I'm seeing. Oh, and then the funding, the SCTA funding plan cycle 2 and a legislative update, and then finish off with our regular reports and activities as usual.
All right, thanks. Anyone have questions? No. Roundtable discussion, item number 9. Anyone have anything to share? Welcome, Brandon. Just started with Windsor.
Yeah.
Got to work with Alejandro. I'm sorry, man.
He came in for Mona, so since Mona, retired, I guess, or.
Yeah.
Officially, I guess is retired, so we hired Brendan to fill in.
Nice, congratulations, welcome.
We actually hired another engineer too, just recently, so we have 2 young engineers with us. Actually, no, 3.
Wow.
Yeah, so there's a lot of young people right now in challenge.
So can I get a hold of Brendan at Mona's phone number?
Anyone else have anything to share? Yeah,
I
please.
just wanna ask you to congratulate our new EE in the state of California, Hunter McLaughlin. He just got his
Congratulations.
registration. Yeah, don't be bashful, be proud.
Online, yes, please. Ms.
Joanne.
Parker.
Hi, Joanne.
Hi, hi. Hi, everybody. Sorry I can't be there in person. I have COVID. You don't want me there. Yesterday, the state of California announced an award in Transit and Intercity Rail Capital Program funds for progressing north from Windsor. The award is for $81 million towards towards the 3.3 miles that are from the Healdsburg northern city limit to the depot. So we are continuing to work with Caltrans and the Metropolitan Transportation Commission to submit Solutions for Congested Corridors grant in a couple weeks, as well as a local partnership program competitive grant for the remainder of the funds that are needed to finish from the Healdsburg depot to the town of Windsor. So it's very exciting. But we're
It's exciting.
going through
$81 million, nothing to sneeze at. That is pretty amazing.
Yeah, right. If we succeed with the June awards for SCC and LPP, then we will be halfway to Geyserville.
Congratulations,
Well
Joanne.
done.
Thanks. I will be I have letters of support. If you have a station in your jurisdiction, you will be getting a letter of support request from SMART and then Caltrans and MTC, although it will be coming from me for supporting our applications that are going in a couple of weeks. So I don't know if it'll go to you directly. I'll try to find who I worked with the last time we did this 40-letter exercise, but I appreciate your assistance in enlisting support from across the SMART corridor.
Great. We look forward to seeing the letters, and I hope no one ever questions the value of your salary, Joanne. 88 million pays for 81 million pays for a lot of years. Anyone else have anything to add? Please.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that everyone is aware that the draft countywide active transportation plan is out for public review. It is on the project website, which is sort of a long URL, but you can navigate there through the active transportation plan page on SCTA's website. It's out for public review through the end of November, and that's along the same timeline as the draft active transportation plans for the cities and the county that are working under SCTA's grant. We'll provide a presentation to this committee next month. But I want to make sure that you know that it's out there. Or sorry, not next month. The next TAC meeting is early December. We'll still be able to take staff input at that time, but the public review period will be closed by then. So if I just encourage folks to take a look at it ahead of that meeting. Thanks.
Dana? Please, Adam.
Yeah. Let's see, just a quick announcement. If you're not aware, SCTA just recently purchased some upgraded bicycle and pedestrian counters. This is one of the first ones that's just looking strictly at pedestrians or bicyclists. It doesn't distinguish. So that's the Pyro box. Let's see. The other one is, there's a couple. These are our tubes, the more traditional ones you may have used. They're coming to the end of their life. And we have a lot of extra kind of roadway tubes also. So if you're doing some roadway counts and have need of some tubes, we can definitely offer you some. But then this particular tube device, I should say, is also just available. It's at the end of its life or battery life. So if there's a place that you just kind of want to set it up and grab some counts and not worry too much, this would be specifically for bicyclists. So that's what the tubes offer. So that's available right now. The one that we upgraded to is called the Mobile Multi. So this is a 2-in-1. It counts and distinguishes pedestrians and bicyclists. So the infrared is still kind of beaming to say, you know, is there a warm body? But then the tubes say, well, is that associated with a bicyclist or not? So that's a great way just to, if you have a multimodal corridor, to capture that distinction. And then we also received a presentation. This is not something we offer, but something you could buy for your city. It's, and I should mention, this is EcoCounter's products as well. So this is EcoCounter's latest upgrade to using artificial intelligence to be able to distinguish between various modes, including scooters, vehicles, bicyclists, pedestrians. I think that may be it. And so this is something that you would have to hardwire. You can move it from place to place, but it has to be hardwired into kind of a pole that has electricity running through it already. So if you want to do a focused case study, and I think the two that, I'm sorry, I wasn't at the meeting, but that they did focused on D Street and Lakeville, something where Elizabeth and I watch regularly at the Petaluma stop. But then also the Santa Rosa Transit Mall. So just trying to give an assessment of what could be the products, what kind of data would you get from this type of artificial intelligence counter. Yeah, so this one says it's 6,475, but then there's also an annual maintenance fee that allows you to connect to Wi-Fi, that kind of thing. So, and we're going to be sending all of this information as well as the presentation from the CBPAC out to CBPAC. But if you want to get a hold of that, yeah, please go ahead and take a look at those minutes.
So Adam, I think I know the answer to it, but wondering if any of the devices would measure speed. I have a class 1 path and recently have had complaints about cyclists going excessively fast. I don't know how legitimate it is. I don't know how frequent it is, but anything in there that you're seeing would track that?
I'm not aware of speed, its direction primarily, but let me check with them.
Not a big deal. I just, since you brought it up.
Yeah, no, it's an important issue, absolutely.
And since we're talking about it, I'm wondering if other agencies, Santa Rosa, Petaluma, who have the class 1s, if you have speed limit signs up and if you ever enforce them. Cause that's my argument. When people call and they say they want a speed limit sign, it's like, it's not gonna do anything and I don't know how the hell we're gonna enforce it.
Yeah, so do you have an ordinance saying,
right?
the speed,
What's that?
speed limit? Do you have that?
Well, I think 15 is vehicle code
Oh,
on
it is.
paths like that. And so we would just be putting a sign up that's enforcing what the law is. I think it functions like a residential speed limit sign where you don't need to put it up. But if you're not going to enforce it, you're probably better off with more friendly, be aware of slower speeds or whatever.
We're definitely under increasing pressure, I think, to begin devoting more resources to that issue. We've been getting a lot more complaints, especially about kids and teenagers on
Electric bikes.
very fast e-bikes that are throttle powered, seems to be kind of the main complaint. So we've actually got our police department just bought a bunch of e-bikes and they're doing a lot more trail patrols, not just related to speeding, but other public safety issues. So yeah, we've been talking about needing to develop some signage and figure out what to do because it's definitely, it's not going to go away.
Yeah.
Right.
Good info. Thank you. Anyone else?
Last thing for me, just something new for the town that should have been done a long time ago, I guess, but every communication email to the town of Windsor employee is now .ca.gov. So windsor.com, but now we're .ca.gov.
You're going in the wrong direction. Everyone else is shortening their.
Yeah, so, that's what we're going now.
And you're gonna change to City of Windsor at some point?
Yeah, maybe down.
All right, good. All right, if there's nothing else, we are adjourned. I do have a question before people leave. Who here manages solid waste for their agency? Anybody?
Like SB 1383 stuff?
No, I didn't mean to take everyone else's meeting. Specifically, construction debris diversion tracking. Like